How do I follow that? This is sort of very intimidated. I've forgotten what I wanted to say. But I'm honored that the group chose our session to make a general protest because it brings back my memories when I was a lot younger and I could walk at various protests in London, in New York, and elsewhere back in the early days of HIV. Many of the fuddy-duddies that are here sitting in the front row and elsewhere will now remember that it's 30 years down the road when AIDS was first diagnosed. 30 years is a long time to grow old in this epidemic. And I'm hoping that before I die, that at least the promises that have been made over the last 30 years around justice, equality, respect, and dignity will be met. I was going to dress up as Julie Andrews. You notice the title, Climb Every Mountain. But I thought, black looks as good as a nun's habit. And I don't look very good with that thing on their head. But in her song, it relates to about following your dreams. And it reminded me of Martin Luther King's speech back in the 60s. Again, you see how old I am? His I Have a Dream speech, a remarkable one of the most resounding speeches this world has ever heard. And the dream that we all had back in the 1980s, that one day we as gay men, other MSM, warriors, Katois, Bakla, transgenders, hijras, people who are different because of their sexual orientation or gender identity, that we will be treated with dignity, that we will be treated with justice, and that we will live lives of respect, mutual respect, as full human beings participating in our societies. 30 years and we have not reached there yet. This session today is part of that long history. I don't know how to work this damn thing. What am I supposed to do here? Press something? Oh, I've got to press a click or something? Yes. At my age, I'm not technologically literate. You youngsters can manage all the technology you want. Okay, this is the region. Where is it? Oh, I have to look here. I'm looking behind me. This is the region where we come from. You'll notice that it includes Afghanistan, where we have a lot of difficulties with certain groups who like to throw bombs around, to Sri Lanka, which has just emerged from a major civil war, to Nepal, which is struggling with their constitutional development, to India, which is, as you know, 1 million mutinous voices, to Pakistan, where they can't decide what they want to be, a population of 1.5 billion people, the largest sub-region in the world. We are extremely diverse and very, very complex. We have many religions. You see some of them listed here, from Islam to Jainism to Christianity to animism, many, many sects. Language, I've put 50 here, but I was reminded that we actually have several hundred languages. But these are the 50 that are in our constitutions. We have social cultural value systems that involve compulsory marriage, adulthood defined by obligation, not by age, extreme at times gender segregation. When I go to Afghanistan, I have to wear a burqa, and I don't look good in a burqa. Bonding defined by gender. Male bonding is the primary social function. Honor, male honor. All you men here, how much honor do you have? Political and religious conservatism. This is the environment which we have to work in. Not like nice New York or Castro Street in San Francisco or Soho in London. We have to do things in a different way. And the key framework for those gay-identified men in this room is that in our part of the world, the primary framework of male-to-male sex is not around sexual orientation and gay identities. It's around gender performance. Men who are men and men who are not quite men. And those men who are not quite men could well be feminized men, young men, transgenders, heteros, whatever. So the top image are the supposedly real men. I mean, I don't know if they are. And the bottom image are these not men, which in Pakistan they're known as zananas or murat or what have you. And here you see a spectrum of a 16-year-old boy who's becoming a zanana, a not man. He's learning the trade, so to speak. The two ones with the makeup perform as zananas. And the older person used to be a zanana, but is now married with 7 children, but still has many sexual partners with other men, because that's who he wants to be. Complex, difficult. We have estimated that in South Asia, roughly 50 million males, men, engage in male-to-male sex. That's the size, that's double the size of the Netherlands, I believe. It's certainly double the size of Sri Lanka. I don't know, and it's probably the population of Thailand. That's a lot of men to play around with, no? So I advise you to have a quick holiday to Pakistan. We can have a lot of fun. However, governments don't like these numbers. So there's an ongoing dispute about what they like to call size estimations. Now, their interpretation of size estimation and my interpretation of size estimation is very different. So, I like to think in feet. They like to think in inches. So the Indian government at some point was saying this. In India, a population of 1.2 billion people, 700 million males, there's roughly 2.5 million MSM who are at risk of HIV. And some 100,000 are extremely high risk of HIV. We think the size estimations need to be reviewed because it impacts on cost estimations and and programming issues. So there's a dispute about numbers, but all I can tell you is there's a lot of us out there. Prevalence data, very poor. This is some information that I collected very quickly. Nothing from Afghanistan, no information from Bhutan, no information from Maldives, and very poor data around the other countries. But India is talking about 7.4% infection rate amongst MSM nationwide, but we know that in Delhi it's above 20%. We know that in Mumbai it's about 15%. We have city-based epidemics that Cliff was talking about earlier on. Interesting, if you look at Pakistan, 4% MSM in Karachi, 27% Hijras in a city called Lakhana. Huge infection rate amongst Hijras there. Because there are crossovers. We forget that many of these men are married, not because they want to get married, but because they have to get married. In Lakhana, there's a crossover between injecting drug use and anal sex. We have multiple epidemics, not only with the endemics that Fritz was talking about, but many other social factors like faith and these crossovers. You know, going back a little bit, I wanted to stress that one of the key cultural concepts in South Asia that affect our lives is the aspect of shame. We are not a guilt-based culture, we are shame-based cultures. And I want to stress to our Korean colleagues at this conference, our colleagues in Bangladesh, our colleagues in Taiwan and Hong Kong and Singapore and elsewhere, that I am not ashamed to stand in this room and say I'm a gay man. I have nothing to be ashamed about. I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud to have my partner with me here. I'm proud to have you as friends. And that's what we need, the message that we need to give out to all of our folks. There is nothing to be ashamed about by who you are. That's the way the universe made you. But I'm sure Mr. Prasada Rao might remember this, although I'm a lot older than he is. Back in 1992, at at the second ICAP, one session on alternate sexualities. I'm not quite sure what that means, because I'm not alternate to anybody. And we asked for a room where a few of us could come together. Dennis will remember this. And they said no. So we made our own space, and we went to the nearest cruising park, which is across the road from the venue. You can see the image here. And we sat there, and we had our discussion in the open air, which I thought was very appropriate to that time. We were invisible. We were not heard. 1994, the 10th International AIDS Conference in Yokohama, a dear friend of ours, and I'm useless in pronunciations. I grew up in England, and in England we believe everybody should speak English. So I apologize if I mispronounce his name. It was Toshihiro. Toshihiro? Any Japanese here? That's correct? Oh, wonderful. A gay man living with HIV spoke in front of the Prince and Princess of Japan. Right now we have a lot of princes and a lot of princesses here in this room. So we're repeating this. An eye-opener, a breaker, a wonderful event. But was his voice heard? Because it's now 2011 and we're still talking on the same subject. Third ICAP in Chiang Mai, only one session. I thought maybe if they kept us away from each other, that might reduce HIV risk, which is why they were having less and less sessions for MSM, because we won't be getting engaged with each other and making dates outside of the plenary hall. Finally, in 95, fifth ICAP at Kuala Lumpur, for those with institutional memory, a few more sessions graciously offered, and the final declaration, read by a gay man from Fiji, explicitly mentioned MSM and TG. The president of Fiji was also here at this conference. And it's a nice link between 1995 and 2011. And of course, the Asia Pacific Rainbow was formed in 1999. And now we have this. The first real plenary session devoted, focused on the needs of MSM and transgenders and HIV. A long road of demonstrations, articulations, nagging, fighting. But will our voices be heard? Will your voices be heard? The point is, we're having this